terms of the budget yesterday, Richard, you know, I guess you would have been a fan of what Liz Truss did in her budget, or tried to do in terms of cutting taxes. It led to crashing the value of the pound. It led to the Conservatives dropping about 25% in the opinion poll. So perhaps that wasn't quite as popular as you might.
No, completely. Look, yesterday's budget was a deeply damaging budget of austerity that was completely and utterly unnecessary. He has decided to tax the people, the workers, but he's done nothing to cut unnecessary, wasteful spending. For example, all of us in our daily lives, we're saying we've got to save £5 and 100. No talk about saving waste. £5 and 100 for the government, that's 50 billion quid. No talk about taxing the renewable businesses that are getting subsidies of 11 billion quid. Right? They don't need them. They say renewables are very cheap, so that's 11 billion quid. No talk about getting 1.5 million people on benefits post-COVID back into work. That's 25 billion quid. If you reorganise the government's QE debt, that would save over 10 billion quid of interest. And then if you cut HS2 and you still spend 50 billion quid on an east-west in the north, you still save 50 billion quid. In a minute, I've saved 196 billion quid. It's an utter outrage what your Chancellor has done to this country, and it's going to consign the nation to low growth and, you know, tragically, lots of people will stop working, they'll just give up.
Andrew Gilligan, who's still with us, former advisor to Boris Johnson, would you have said, stop, don't do this, Boris, this is a disaster? I mean, what would you have said? What would your advice have been on this autumn statement?
I'd have said there are definitely some things you can cut. I'm not so sure about the renewal stuff as Richard's, but clearly HS2. I think the number of people now to work benefits is really problematic. 5.3 million, really high number of people, much higher than any other country as a proportion of the workforce. And it's not just costing us money in taxes, it's also holding down growth. And I think one of the key things the government's got to do is get more of those people back into the labour market.
Not enough is said about those unemployment figures and how many people have left it.
They're not unemployed.
Worklessness.
They're sort of not in the... They're not seeking work, so they're not actually counted as unemployed.
Or, not quite the full story again, Andrew, there's people who've moved from unemployment into a disability, or as people would have known them, incapacity, and they don't have to look for work. But there's been a big movement there.
Big rise in the number of people on incapacity benefits, particularly for mental conditions. Yeah. Now, you know, some of that's quite difficult to assess, but I think we've got to have a go at doing it. Say, you know, how many of these conditions are actually preventing you from working? Is there some kind of work you could do?
Richard, from the feedback we get from our viewers, and obviously lots of them, as we've been saying, have been saying we're giving up on the Conservatives, we're joining the Reform Party. How many of them, though, are joining you because of the channel crossings as opposed to the autumn statement?
It's arranged. People are steaming mad about the issue of illegal immigration because they know that it's unfair at every single level, and it's an absolute outrage. We're the only party that absolutely knows how to stop the boats.
And how would you stop it?
We would stop the boats because we'd adopt the Australian solution. You have to declare a national security threat using the UN 51 Convention. You have to say that 0 people who come illegally across the Channel will be resettled. You have to leave the ECHR, and you have to have a policy of pick up and take back to France. That stops it. And then you deal with processing. You have offshore processing centres. It's what Australia did, and it stopped it. So that's a big issue.
When I asked the House of Commons Library about this, they said that for us to send them back to France, France would have to agree to take back the boats, and that search and rescue international maritime law means that you'd have to rescue these people.
And they're completely wrong. You can use existing legislation, the UN Convention at Sea, the existing Safety of Life at Sea laws under 1974. What you need is people who believe in the cause, who absolutely are determined to do it, competent lawyers who believe in the cause, and you go for it.
And what if you send back a dinghy and a child dies on the way back?
You pick up and put them into your border force boats, and you take back. But the other thing is, you've got to have a new Department of Immigration. The Home Office is not fit for purpose. You've got to start again with people who believe in what they're doing. So immigration's vital, but growing the economy, cutting taxes, rewarding hard work, these are all key, vital things that people up and down the country believe in.